On the Road with the Western Ag Network. Brought to you by Ag Risk Advisors.
Well, cattle producers from across the Cowboy State are in Riverton this week for the 2023 Wyoming Cattle Industry Convention and Trade Show. And this report is brought to you by Ag Risk Advisors, providing risk management solutions for ranchers and farmers. Learn more about livestock risk protection by visiting agriskadvisors.com. Wyoming Stock Growers Association President David Kane out of Sheridan says, as always, there's never a lack of issues to talk about, but thankfully, one of them this year are these higher cattle prices.
It's encouraging. With our input costs rising at a rapid rate, it's kind of nice to see that maybe we're going to have a little help from the cattle markets. It's a bright spot after a tough winter for a lot of the producers in the state, and it's been a long time coming, and we're looking forward to it.
He says one of the big issues this year is traceability and understanding its role from the ranch to the plate.
Traceability is what we're, in the context we're looking at it, is animal health. We're not talking about the government finding out where you put every cow and calf for any other reason than if there's a disease outbreak. That's the only thing that we care about. Otherwise, it's none of their business. But I think burying our head in the sand and thinking it'll never happen is probably not realistic. And so we want to be at the table to make it something that's palatable to the producers of Wyoming.
Jack Berger is the Wyoming Stock Growers' first vice president from Saratoga and says they'd also like to see Endangered Species Act reform so states like Wyoming and Montana would be in charge of managing wildlife like grizzly bears.
Yeah, it shouldn't be so hard to get species off there and stuff. And I mean, we know it's kind of a broken system. It had good intentions, like you said, when it started, but what they're celebrating it this year and what they have a 2% success rate, I think. So I'm not sure that's something to be real proud of, but they have removed a few species, but it'd be nice to get some reform. It seems like we talk about it over and over and over again, but not much happens, but it needs to happen.
With water the lifeline of agriculture, he says they were very pleased by the U.S. Supreme Court's recent decision regarding WOTUS.
Well, that was huge. I don't know if they ever come out with a unanimous decision, and they did on this one, so that must tell you how wrong it was. So yeah, that's a huge win.
And just a friendly reminder that the Wyoming Environmental Stewardship Tour is taking place on July 12th at the Big Creek Ranch near encampment. And for more information, you can visit the Wyoming Stock Growers Association's website.
Ready for a real PRF partner?
He was willing to track us for a year and provide that data back to us for a year. That's a guy making a pretty big investment.
At Ag Risk Advisors, this isn't our first rodeo. We are one of the most experienced in pasture rangeland forage. Honesty, commitment, trust. Many companies use these words. At Ag Risk Advisors, we earn them.
Continuing our coverage from here in Riverton at the Wyoming Cattle Industry Convention and Trade Show. It's always fun to catch up with important agribusiness partners. This time we're going to visit with Ag Risk Advisors and their Tate Berlier. And Tate, it is convention time across Western Ag Network country, obviously visiting with you here in Riverton, but holy cow, we have other stock growers meetings the next few weeks or so. Next week, the Montana stock growers will be meeting in Havre, and then in a couple weeks, a lot of cattle producers will be in Steamboat Springs for the Colorado Cattlemen's Association's annual convention. But, you know, what have you been visiting with folks here in Riverton at the Wyoming Cattle Industry Convention about?
Mostly the same thing that we typically are discussing, which is really just long-term risk management approaches and how do the tools that are available potentially impact their operation. And trying to do the best that we can to help people understand the tools that are available and whether there's a place in their operation for them.
Maybe walk us through some of those tools that Ag Risk Advisors has for farmers and ranchers across our entire region.
Yeah, well, I think we focus primarily on the federal crop insurance programs, and so all of the farm customers are typically pretty familiar with what those are. But for the livestock operation, many of these products are relatively new, and the Risk Management Agency has been trying to reach those folks with new tools over the past decade plus. And so a lot of those have become somewhat familiar. Pasture Rangeland Forage Program, of course, is really, as you said earlier, saved a lot of people's bacon these past couple of years with the drought. And of course, the market's high right now, but livestock risk protection has become really popular as a way to try and guarantee ourselves a decent price in the fall.
Typically livestock producers are a pretty independent bunch of guys and gals out there, and it's kind of hard sometimes to wrap our brains around the fact that there is crop insurance out there for the U.S. livestock industry. Just talk us through how the program works.
Well, there are several different plans of insurance that might fit a particular operation. Again, I mentioned the livestock risk protection is a price protection product, and right now with the kind of setting new records or getting close to them on both the fed and feeder cattle, gives producers an opportunity to lock in a coverage price that they're guaranteed whenever they deliver those animals, regardless of the type. And so that's been very popular for the past couple of years, but also is certainly popular in a year like this where we actually have the price to go along with some of the production, and we've got something that's really worth hanging on to.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, if there's somebody out there that wants to learn more about Ag Risk Advisors and all the different products and services that you have, what's a good resource, Tate?
I think anybody that just goes to agriskadvisors.com can kind of start learning a little bit. We've put a lot of resources on our website. We're very education focused, and like you said, most people in the livestock industry are very independent, and just like my family, I don't think anybody that we talk to is probably likely to go out of business tomorrow if they don't use some type of risk management through federal crop insurance or something else. But we try to educate people and help them understand that it might help them get to the next year and might help the operation long term. And so that's what we really focus on.
Well, and bottom line too, just kind of wrapping things up, it also kind of helps prepare the operation and kind of sets the next generation up for success, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We really haven't had the financial risk management tools available to us in the livestock industry. Pretty much everything that we've been used to in the past has been to make another hole in the belt loop and to just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and do a little bit more with less next year. But now we have the ability to lay some of that financial risk off through some of these products, and that absolutely helps the next generations that are looking to take over.
Well, we sure appreciate you joining us for a few minutes to kind of give us an update on what's going on these days with Ag Risk Advisors and all the different products and services that are available to both farmers and ranchers across our entire region. Again, as Tate mentioned, for more details, you can always visit them online at agriskadvisors.com. Well, another big issue at this year's Wyoming Cattle Industry Convention here in Riverton has been the Bureau of Land Management's new proposed rule, which a lot of folks feel puts livestock grazing in jeopardy on America's federal lands. However, Wyoming Governor Mark Gordon told us he's going to do everything in his power to make sure that livestock remain part of America's federal landscape.
I've been a rancher all my life. I've gotten the stewardship award for the Society of Rangeland Management, and ranchers are conservationists at heart, and so to pose conservation as something different from grazing and what ranchers do every day is wrong-headed in my mind. You know, that's just at the base of it. If you're going to make lands better, you're going to have ranchers on them. That's first and foremost. But then in addition to that, you know, the way they've introduced this rule was too sudden. Nobody had a chance to really respond to it. I know here they're working on trying to get people to make comments just to say, delay this, give some people some chance to think about it. And you know, it's the wrong idea all in all. And we're going to work every way we can to make sure that we push back on it and get that put back in the box.
The governor also talked with us about the judge's recent decision regarding that controversial corner crossing case.
There's probably work that's going to go on in our legislature to deal with that. I think for landowners and ranchers, it makes things more difficult. I think for sportsmen, it's not the great thing that they thought it might be. At least some of these sportsmen did. You know, and most sportsmen, if they have a chance, will have the opportunity to work with a rancher and a landowner to do the right thing. In this particular case, forcing on to you know, onto land that otherwise would be landlocked, I'm not sure it's going to work out that well for anybody. And the last thing I'd say, you know, our wildlife populations, they're seeing more and more recreational activity, more and more pressure on public land, no matter where that is. They need to have some sanctuary. And that's, all of this is an important issue.
And of course, all of these issues we've been talking about are all the more reason to belong to the Wyoming Stock Growers Association, which of course is working on behalf of its members every single day, not just here in the Cowboy State, but also working with their national affiliates like NCBA and the Public Lands Council to make sure that ranchers' voices are heard loud and clear back on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. as well. And of course, it's also time to mark your calendars. That's because the Winter Roundup is headed back to Casper December 4th through the 6th. And in the meantime, you can find all the information by visiting the Wyoming Stock Growers Association's website. Reporting from the Wyoming Cattle Industry Convention and Trade Show here in Riverton, I'm Russell Nimitz for the Western Ag Network.
On the road with the Western Ag Network. Brought to you by Ag Risk Advisors.